As it turns out, people used to say, "Let no Roman citizen even hear the word crucifixion. It is so horrendous." The word crucifixion is where we get our word excruciating from. Ex cruce, off the cross. You had to invent a word to describe how bad the crucifixion is. The process of crucifixion starts with flogging. It is called the pre-death in some works, because people were flogged not with just a stick, but with a Roman whip called the cat o' nine tails. This whip often had about 6 leather cords that came off of it. And at the end of these leather cords were leather balls, which had shards of bone and metal dumbbells attached to them. Well, what was the point of these shards of bone and these metal dumbbells? When striking a victim, the metal dumbbells would cause vasodilation. It would cause pain receptors to become acute. It would cause blood vessels to dilate, thereby weakening people even more when those shards of bone would grab into the skin and pull it off. So the skin was literally pulled off and blood was profuse because of those metal dumbbells. It was very intelligently designed for the purpose of weakening a victim. In the process of flogging, it has been said that intestines were spilt because the abdominal wall was weakened so much the intestines came out. This happened on a few occasions. People sometimes died during the flogging process. The whole body was flogged. The whole body was flogged. It was horrific, to say the least. The point of the flogging was so that people would not be able to kick and fight when they would be nailed to the cross. They would be on the verge of death, as it were, already. Now, what we know about flogging is that Jews were not allowed to flog more than 40 times. According to Old Testament law, you could flog 40 and no more. And what the Jews would do is they would stop at 39, just to make sure that they didn't accidentally miscount while they're flogging. They didn't want to break God's law. The Romans, in spite of the Jews, would therefore flog more than 40 times to show them, hey, we're not bound by your silly little laws. We're going to flog as much as we want. And so the flogging was often very protracted. It is at this point that the victim would then be made to sometimes carry the crossbeam to the point of the cross. Not the entire cross, just the crossbeam. And they would walk to that place. By the way, they're being flogged while naked, and they're being crucified while naked. Cheers. So all those wonderful paintings we have of Christ with the loincloth on are lessening the humiliation that our Lord suffered. He was naked on the cross. When being placed on the cross, nails were driven through the arms, not the hands, as is often depicted in medieval statements. The reason why is because back in those days, when someone said hand, they pictured this whole area, not just this area. So it was okay to say hands and still mean here. But this is the only place the weight of a person could be supported, here between the radius and the ulna. And guess what runs right through there? The median nerve. All right? So if you've ever hit your elbow on your funny bone, imagine piercing it with a nail. It destroys your hands. The median nerve is the main sensory motor nerve of the hand, and it destroys your hands. As you're nailed there, your knees are bent slightly, and one ankle is placed over the other, and a 9-inch nail is driven through your feet. This is for more than just torture, though. This is to give you a means to push yourself off of the nail. When you are hanging in this position, if you're just hanging, you will not be able to breathe out. You'll breathe in, and then to breathe out, you have to have some room. You have to have some positive pressure develop, and so your rib cage needs to collapse. And in order to do that, you have to push out. That is what the nail in your feet was for. So you'd push up to be able to breathe out. Otherwise, the victim would die very quickly. And so that nail was actually an additional torture device to make sure that your death was protracted, it was long. And by the way, every time you're pushing up to breathe out, you're scraping a back that has no skin against splintered wood. This is not a fun process. And when you are at the point of death, all the Roman soldiers have to do is see that you're not moving anymore. If you're not moving, you're not breathing, you're dead. But they didn't stop there, because if they weren't sure that you were dead, the Roman soldier could lose their job, be killed, if they weren't sure you were dead. So what they'd often do is they'd administer death blows. This is why the knees of the robbers alongside Jesus were broken. By breaking their knees, they were not able to push up, they would stop breathing, and they would die. Jesus had already given up his spirit, and so they pierced his heart with a spear. Other forms of death blows included crushing the skull with a sledgehammer. It included lighting people on fire. All kinds of horrific ways to crucify people. Anyone who knows the process knows that you will die by crucifixion. There is no account of anybody in history surviving a full Roman crucifixion.